Imagine sending your child to school in the morning, and they come home in handcuffs. Not for fighting. Not for bringing weapons. But because you couldn't afford to pay a fine. This actually happened to thousands of students across America, and what I'm about to tell you will make your blood boil. Meet the 14-year-old girl, named Grace Rodriguez. She was an honor roll student at a middle school in Pennsylvania. Grace loved math, played in the school band, and dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. She had never been in trouble before. One Tuesday morning in 2012, Grace arrived at school like any other day. But during second period, a police officer showed up at her classroom door, in front of all her classmates. The officer told Grace to pack her things. She was being arrested. Grace was terrified. She had no idea what she'd done wrong. Her hands shook as the officer put her in handcuffs. Her best friend started crying. Other students pulled out their phones. Grace's face burned with embarrassment as she was walked through the hallway, past teachers and students who stared in shock. What was Grace's crime? Her mother owed the school $450 in unpaid lunch fees and library fines. Grace wasn't alone. That same day, officers arrested 5 other students at her school, all from low-income families, all for unpaid fees their parents couldn't afford. But here's what makes this even worse. The school never called Grace's mother. They never sent a final warning. They never offered a payment plan. They went straight to arresting children. Grace spent 6 hours at a juvenile detention center. She was fingerprinted, photographed, and placed in a cell with other kids. When her mother finally arrived, she was sobbing. She had been working double shifts as a waitress, trying to catch up on bills after Grace's father lost his job. The $450 debt? The school had automatically charged Grace's account for school lunches, even though her family qualified for free lunch. Grace's mother had applied for the free lunch program, but the paperwork got lost. Nobody told them there was a problem until the police showed up. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a nationwide problem that turned schools into pipelines to jail. In Pennsylvania alone, judges sent over 3,000 students to detention centers for minor school violations between 2008 and 2014. These weren't violent crimes. Kids were arrested for throwing food in the cafeteria, talking back at teachers, being late to class multiple times, cursing in the hallway, and yes, parents owing money to the school. Here's how the system worked, and I need you to understand this because it's absolutely corrupt. Schools partnered with local courts to create what they called zero-tolerance policies. When a student violated school rules or when parents owed money, instead of detention or parent conferences, schools filed citations with the local magistrate. These citations came with fines, sometimes hundreds of dollars. If families couldn't pay the fines, judges issued arrest warrants for the students. Not the parents who owed the money. The children. Let that sink in. Kids were being held responsible for debts their parents couldn't pay. But it gets darker. Many of these cases were handled by a judge named Mark Ciavarella in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania. For years, Judge Ciavarella was sending kids to detention facilities at an alarming rate. He became known as a tough judge who didn't tolerate bad behavior. In 2008, the truth came out. Judge Ciavarella was receiving $2.8 million in illegal payments from private juvenile detention centers. For every kid he sent to these facilities, he got paid. He was literally selling children into incarceration. The scandal was called Kids for Cash. And it revealed something horrifying. The justice system had turned children into profit. But even after Judge Ciavarella was exposed and sent to prison, the practice of arresting kids for poverty-related issues continued in other states. In Texas, students missed school because their families couldn't afford uniforms or school supplies. They received truancy citations. The fine started at $100 but quickly grew to $500 or more with court fees. When families couldn't pay, warrants were issued, and students were arrested. In Mississippi, a 10-year-old boy was arrested at school and detained because he urinated in a parking lot near the school. His family couldn't afford the $500 fine. He spent 3 days in a juvenile facility. In Alabama, school resource officers arrested students for disorderly conduct, which could mean anything from raising their voice to refusing to follow directions. Low-income students and students of color were arrested at 3 times the rate of white students. The system was broken, and it was targeting the most vulnerable children. Let's go back to Grace Rodriguez. After her arrest, Grace's life changed completely. She stopped raising her hand in class, afraid of drawing attention to herself. She developed anxiety and had panic attacks before school. Her grades dropped. She stopped playing in the band because she was too embarrassed to face her classmates. Grace's mother, Maria, took out a payday loan to pay the $450 debt plus the additional $300 in court fees and processing charges. The loan came with 400% interest. It took Maria 2 years to pay it off, but the damage to Grace went deeper than money. She had a criminal record, a juvenile record that colleges and employers could see. For unpaid lunch fees, Grace's story sparked outrage when a local news reporter investigated. Parents across the district came forward with similar stories. They discovered that over 200 students had been arrested in their district alone over a 3-year period. The community organized. Parents, teachers, and civil rights lawyers filed a federal lawsuit against the school district and the magistrate who issued the warrants. In 2015, they won. The court ruled that the arrests violated students' constitutional rights. The school district was forced to pay $3.2 million in damages and change its policies. All student records were expunged, but the victory was bittersweet. Many of those students had already dropped out of school. Some developed lasting trauma. Several ended up in the criminal justice system later because their first interaction with police was being arrested at school. Research shows that students who are arrested at school are 3 times more likely to drop out and twice as likely to be incarcerated as adults, even if the initial arrest was for something minor. The school-to-prison pipeline is real. And poverty is the fuel that feeds it. Today, Grace is 26 years old. She never became a veterinarian. She works at a grocery store and is still dealing with anxiety from that day in 2012. But Grace is also an advocate. She speaks at schools and community centers about her experience. She tells her story so that other kids don't have to go through what she did. Since the Pennsylvania case, several states have passed laws banning the arrest of students for school-related debts. Civil rights organizations are pushing for more reforms nationwide. But here's what you need to know: this is still happening in many places. According to the latest data, over 250,000 students are arrested at school each year in the United States. Many of these arrests are for nonviolent, minor infractions that used to be handled by principals and counselors. Low-income students are disproportionately affected because their families can't afford lawyers, can't pay fines, and can't take time off work to fight the charges. The lesson here isn't complicated. Poverty should never be criminalized. Children should never be punished for their families' financial struggles. Schools should be places of learning, not entry points to the justice system. What happened to Grace and thousands of kids like her is a reminder that injustice often hides in plain sight, dressed up as policy and procedure. If you found this story disturbing, you should be disturbed. That means you still believe in justice. That means you still believe children deserve better. The fight continues. And awareness is the first step toward change. Remember Grace's name. Remember her story. Because the moment we forget is the moment it happens again. Want to learn more about systemic injustice? Watch this next case that will shock you even more. Next, I forgot. Please do well to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more tips.